Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. So, there's a few things on my mind, basketball-wise, that I wanted to share with you guys. Nothing major, nothing really structured. Just turning on the screen and letting it see, letting it be what it's going to be. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about Kyle Kuzma because you guys have probably heard me speak on this many times um, in many different ways, but I don't know if I've ever phrased it in this way. For the betterment of Kyle Kuzma's career, he must find his way out of Los Angeles. He must. As long as he's here, he's not going to be able to turn into the prolific scorer that his skill set will allow him to eventually become. I don't know that he's going to be a great rebounder. I don't know that he'll ever be a competent defender. I think he has some playmaking skills in him, and as he gets more mature, I think you can start to see him become a triple-double threat. You know, he can probably knock down, he can probably grab down 10 boards. You know, and there's going to be games where his assists are going to be hovering around the 7 mark, and some good games he'll get even higher assist numbers than that. And scoring wise, I think he can average over 20 points a game when he fully flourishes. When he fully gets 30 minutes a game and the opportunity to play in an offense that complements him like it's supposed to. Right now, I think the Lakers are finding a way to get him involved. He's getting into his groove, but I still think the role that he's in is for a lesser talent, to be honest with you. For somebody who's not as talented as him. But it is nice to have a plethora of riches in that regard for the Lakers. And look, as a Laker fan, I love his contract. I'm happy that we have a young 6'10" forward slash small forward, power forward, who can stretch the floor, making $40 million on it as a whole in his contract, about $10 million a year, I think, 4 years. That's a great contract. I think it's movable if we want to get some pieces back for him. I think he can get us a piece or two. But we have to do something to increase his value. And the Lakers seem reluctant to trade him. So the Laker fan in me is feeling like we got house money. From the perspective of the franchise, we're doing great. It was a great signing. Even if he doesn't live up to it, like I said, it's movable. It's fine. But if you're a Kuzma fan, let's say you don't like the Lakers very much, but you love Kyle Kuzma, this is not the place for him. It's just not. Now, there's two sides of the coin. The object of the game is to win, and win a lot. So, from that perspective, of course, this is the place for him. This is the place for all players right now. We got LeBron and AD. So, if you're looking to win a championship, you want to be here. So from that perspective, of course, winning is good for him. Of course. I don't think he can demand $40 million if he doesn't win that championship this past summer or winter. You know what I'm trying to say. So with that being said, I personally think that Kyle Kuzma may not want to leave the Lakers. He wouldn't have signed the deal if he did. So this is not necessarily about what's best for him in winning, and this is not necessarily what's best for him in locale. All of that stuff, I'm sure he's happy. Problem is, he can be greater than he is. He can be a lot greater than he is. And at this point, it's like there's absolutely no way, no how for him to truly become his best self as long as he's sitting on a roster being the fifth option, sixth option, sometimes fourth option if he's lucky. He takes a couple shots and he's happy with those shots, and just walks away with like 12 points, 5 rebounds, and maybe an assist and a steal or something. Like, that's not the type of numbers that talented kid should be putting up in year 4, year 3, whatever year this is. I think it's 3. No, he should be further along. He should be averaging at least 16 points a game, 7 rebounds. Like, that's what I'd expect from him at this point. And if he played for, say, a random team over there where he gets 40 minutes a game or 35 minutes a game, 30 minutes a game, we ain't going to get him up to 40 yet. But, if he can get a real starters minutes type of role, yeah, you're going to see him do things that are a lot better than what he's able to show on this team. So that's the first topic I wanted to throw at you guys. And this is not news. I've had this opinion the entire time. I just don't think that this is the best place for him to become the star or the, player that he can become. If he can't be a star, he can certainly be better than he is at this point. So give or take, maybe he ends up having a career like, right now, I mean, I don't want to throw anyone's name under the bus or anything, but a player who won a lot of championships but didn't win didn't make it all-star team or didn't get a Sixth Man of the Year trophy or something like that. So that's a cool career. Like maybe a name that comes to mind, somebody like James Posey. Like, that's a fantastic career. Won a lot. Was a part of some very, very fantastic teams. And when you think about James Posey, you think about a guy who was really, really a part of some fantastic circumstances. Unfortunately, for James Posey, he didn't have the talent and the natural ability of a guy like Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma is just a gifted scorer. When he's confident and when he's really into it, he's a so he can score. He can roll out of bed and drop 35. Like, this is not someone that I think is just average or slightly above average or anything like that. When it comes to the particular skill of scoring the ball, he has something special in him, and we're just not seeing it. We're not seeing it on these Laker teams, and that's that. So a guy like Kyle Kuzma have to really ask himself, what does he want to see himself become? If you want to sacrifice for the betterment of the team and win a bunch of, win a lot, then that's cool. You're going to make less money, but probably, walk away with more rings, more opportunities to win. Is that what he wants? If it is, good. But just know that you're leaving a whole lot on the table as it pertains to individual accolades, individual, statistics and things of that nature. So it just depends on what he wants ultimately. But I can see opportunities elsewhere for him to just really, really maximize his opportunities. So to play well individually. So for what it's worth, next thing I want to talk about is just two coaches that I have on my mind. And look, I'm not in any position at all to be saying who's an expert at what as it pertains to the sport of basketball, because I am not an expert in those areas. I'm just a guy who's watched the game his whole life and appreciated it from afar. So when it comes, like I say in certain videos, I trust real basketball minds to educate me about the surface level understanding that I have of the game based on just really, really, really paying a close attention to it from afar. But there's levels to basketball IQ, and I only have but what I have. So I respect that, and I'll listen to others, and I'm okay with being wrong. So when I get up here and I say a coach needs to be fired, please take all that I just said into account, okay? I'm not advocating for people to lose their jobs per se. I'm just simply saying what a team needs in order to be better. And sometimes that's a change at the coaching position. So how do you, the balance for talking heads is to call for a guy's job without actually hoping that he gets fired, which doesn't really seem to have a space to exist at the same time. So that's what I have to say. That's my disclaimer. But the two guys that come to mind, first of all, I'm looking at the Washington Wizards. I'm listening to what people are telling me about the Washington Wizards. I look at their roster and I say there's no reason for them to be in the position that they're in, to be the very last team in the Eastern Conference. That I understand that Russell Westbrook hasn't really been playing great, but he's still Russell Westbrook. You should be able to get some wins out of him. Every team he's ever played for, even the teams that KD left, were good enough to compete. And in the Eastern Conference, my prediction was that Russell Westbrook will run amok. Now, I know it's not easy for him to play with a guy like Bradley Beal because Bradley Beal holds the ball and, it's the focal point of the offense. And at this stage, you're not choosing Russell Westbrook over Bradley Beal, especially in Washington. That's not happening. But you do have to devise ways for you yourself to get the most out of the guys that you have. Um, Thomas Bryant went down with a knee. He's going to be out for the season. That was devastating. But they're not devoid of talent. The Washington Wizards have some young guys on that team that I think are going to be something one day. And a guy like Mo Wagner, whom the Lakers knew, we had him, we drafted him, and I like him. You know, I don't think he's going to be great defensively, but he has a whole lot of heart, energy into him. The ability to hit a jump shot. He does run the floor pretty well. He actually can put the ball on the floor a little bit better than you would think. And he's somebody who can give you, when he fully develops, I think, 20 and 10. You know, he may be able to do a few more things for you as well. So, like, that's one guy I'm looking at to take a step forward in TB's absence. Obviously, they got Rui Hachimura. That's a nice player. Power forward, small forward combination, scoring, rebounding guy. Not going to give you too many assists. Occasionally get you a defensive stat here and there. But the majority of what he's going to do for you is board and score. And, you know, going forward, I really like that player because he utilizes the mid-range a little bit more than some of the players that I see at that position on average of his tier. So I think he's going to have opportunity to score a bit more than the average guy. And, you know, that's a player that you like a lot. Has some trade value, I'm sure. Deni Avdija. Here we go. That's another guy that I don't think that the Washington Wizards are using properly at this point. He's somebody you put the ball in his hands and you allow him to create for others, create for himself, rebound the ball. He's a Swiss Army knife. It's not a whole lot he cannot do. Already, even in the first 3 weeks of the season, you can see his talent level and his ability to kind of fill up the stat sheet in just about every category there is. I don't think they're allowing him that opportunity, and it has to do with some of the other players on the roster. And of course, Bradley Beal is having a career year. He's averaging like 30 points a game. He's just playing like one of the top 5 scorers in basketball, which he's been for the last couple of years, just on a bad team. But he is an elite scorer, and you know, he's not going to give you anything on the defensive end, unfortunately, but I think he would give you a heck of a lot more hustle if he played for a winning situation. You'd see a more effort out of him defensively if he were playing for, say, the Lakers or the Heat or something like that. So I look at Scott Brooks and I say, you know, he had what was going on in the Thunder for many years, and I didn't like what I saw out of him in the Thunder. He couldn't get the most out of the players he had. He couldn't get the most out of that team, even though they were super loaded. They never won anything. They didn't play all that cohesive. It wasn't a whole lot of creativity in their offense. And you can see the same issues here in Washington, only worse because they have less talent. And I think the solution for the Washington Wizards, because they're not trading Bradley Beal, because TB went down with the knee, so he's not going to be tradable at this point, and you do see him as a future player. They do have Deni. They do have all this. You just got to find a coach who can find a way to balance the need for the ball to be in the hands in all 3 of those players. Westbrook, Beal, and Deni Avdija's hands. They all need the ball. So that means you need to have them in lineups where they're controlling the ball. And that's tough. That's a tough situation, but the reality is you need a very creative, offensively imaginative coach. And Scotty Brooks has never been that. He's never been that. You know, I can't speak to whether or not he has the locker room. I can't speak to how other guys, you know, how guys feel about having him on the team. I just look at the production of the team since he's been there, and they haven't been any good at all. And I think that if there's a coach that should be looking to kind of pack his bags, he's probably the number one guy that comes to mind for me. I just think the Washington Wizards would benefit from going in a different direction at the coaching spot. Just a fresh voice, a fresh look, a fresh system, fresh everything. They just need a whole new everything. They got rid of John Wall. John Wall's playing great. Now, I wouldn't have predicted that, but he's healthy with the Rockets. He looks good. Maybe you need what he brings to the tables, Westbrook is kind of a guy that's going head first, looking to do what it is that he does. Um, Probably a little undermotivated because it's the first time in a long time that he's not playing for a contender, or at least a team that he would consider worth hustling on, hustling for. I just don't think there's a whole lot of opportunities for you to trade him at all, being that, every team that's had his contract has had a tough time getting rid of it. So you don't have a solution in getting rid of him. You don't want to trade Bradley Beal. He's a legacy player for you, and he continues to re-sign there because he has an affinity for the Washington franchise. So you want to keep him happy. And you just got Denny, and you don't know what he can do. But I can guarantee you, if you get rid of him now, you'll wish you didn't. That much I can assure you. If I'm the Washington Wizards, I'm starting from scratch personally. I'm starting from scratch. Westbrook is something you can't do anything about. Beal is something you can't do anything about, and the rest of their players are young. So it's really not a whole lot to do but fire the coach and just lose out like you're going to do. And then find a way to find an identity with the next coach. Devise an identity. Come up with something creative. You need a creative person in place to just find some type of scheme, a triangle or something that will work with those players on that roster that just don't fit. And, I don't know who their GM is, but I don't like how that team has been put together. Now, they do what they can, but when you're Washington, you have a bigger market than, say, a Charlotte or a Phoenix. Like, that's the nation's capital, okay? I've been there several times. It's one of the places in this world where I wouldn't mind living myself. The weather's always been solid when I've been there. It's a nice city. I mean, you could do a heck of a lot worse in this league. That is not one of the worst places to be. So for them, one of the more attractive small market teams in terms of small markets, they shouldn't be this bad. And they shouldn't have had such a poor run for so long. Just like the Knicks, they just need to not be as bad as they are of a franchise. And like I said, with all the talent that they have some guys. They shouldn't suck this bad. All right, and the next guy that comes to mind is Terry Stotts of the Portland Trail Blazers. I like the Blazers. I got them being one of the top teams in the league this year. They're good. I'm not going to say they're okay. They're better than okay. They're good. But for the roster that they have, for the players that they've now picked up, they should be running amok. They should be acting a fool. They should be beating teams like we're beating teams. You talk about DJ, you talk about Robert Covington, obviously Dame and CJ, Nurkic. They should not continue to find themselves in a space where they're struggling with the likes of Chicago. That just should not be. I look at their roster and I say, you need the same thing that the Washington Wizards need. They just need a new scheme. Terry Stotts, I think, is the weakest link, to be honest. And I've thought that probably for as long as he's been there. He's just an average coach, man. And I can think of several average coaches that are around the league, and he's one of them. It's that simple. So the team is only going to go as far as he takes them in terms of his schematics, in terms of how he puts his lineups on the floor, in terms of what goes down around there. And like I said, he's not a bad coach. He's sturdy. You know what I mean? That would be the way that I describe how he runs his stuff. The team's solid. It's not like they're missing the playoffs or they're scraping the bottom. I don't want to overstate the idea, but you've been giving the guy he's been there for at least 6 years, and they can't get over the hump at all. Like, they just can't get over the hump. Now, the issues in the past, in my opinion, has been they didn't have a small forward. They just didn't have enough versatility in their lineup. Well, they went out and got two of the more versatile players you could find in Rocco and DJ, and they still don't seem to really play any differently. Derek is barely getting any minutes. I don't know what's going on with Rodney Hood. I'm not sure if he's healthy or not. I really, really like Gary Trent Jr. So they have a nice roster, especially now. Their roster is just fine. But the coach that they got down there is just average. He's just run of the mill. You know what I mean? You're happy to have him down there. Maybe he can get a nice roster to the playoffs, but he's not getting you over the top. He's not out scheming the likes of the better coaches in this league. And it's just time to go in a different direction. If this were year 2 or year 3 with Terry Stotts, I'd have a different opinion, because they don't suck. But because we're this far into his tenure and his team is not making any ground on some of the better teams, despite having a good roster, this is the year where if I'm running the Portland Trailblazers, this is it for me. I'm probably firing him tomorrow. Like, that's where I'm at. I understand that the circumstances of this season are a little different because of COVID, because of no training camp, because of all that stuff you take into account. Maybe you give these coaches the end of the year to try to see if they can get the team to looking the way you want it to look by the end of the season. I have no problem with not firing anyone under these circumstances. I can see the logic in that, but I guess for me, I've seen enough with those two guys. I've seen enough. So this isn't personal. I'm not angry. I'm not trying to make anybody lose their job. I don't even think they're going to listen to me by the time this situation finds whatever path it's going to take. But this is just my take, a person who's watching these teams from afar saying they should be doing better with the roster that they have. I see teams doing better with less. I see coaches getting more out of less. And most importantly, I see players in positions to succeed. And then I look at their team and I see players in positions to not really get the most out of themselves. And that's a coaching thing. That's a coaching thing. How players are used, what positions they're put in, what plays are run for them, what plays are not run for them. Those things matter. And coaches hold value in those areas. And your preparation, your schematics, how you use your timeouts, all of that stuff has an effect on the basketball game. And if you don't have the right guy in place at your coach with the mind to get the most out of his players, and to not only get the most out of them, but to reach them, to keep their ear, and to make them feel welcome in whatever way is necessary for the group, then that coach should be fired. So that's my opinion. My name is BDO44. Thank you guys for watching. I'm out.